Welcome to today's webinar on advancing AI governance and risk management. I'm Sindhu Vethody, and it's a pleasure to have such a great audience with us today, comprising of chief audit executives, CFOs, internal auditors, and senior leaders from across public and private sector. Today, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, and it's no longer a futuristic concept. It's already reshaping how we manage risk, perform audits, and ensure accountability. With India's upcoming regulatory framework like the Data Protection and Digital Privacy Act and certain directions, and the recent AI governance framework released by both National Cyber and AI Center and the Office of the Comptroller and Audit General of India, AI governance is now firmly entering the boardroom and audit committee agenda. Today's discussion will focus on how we can translate these frameworks into practical, risk-aware actions, how we as auditors, accountants, and financial leaders can ensure that AI systems remain ethical, explainable, secure, and auditable. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues from US team, both of whom have been closely advising clients and regulators on AI risk management and assurance. Firstly, we have Hans, who is a subject matter expert in IT risk. He leads Protiviti's technology risk practice in Tampa. He's one of the Protiviti leaders driving the integration of AI and Gen AI into audit practices. He advises clients across diverse industries on next-gen IT audit solution with a strategic focus on cybersecurity, AI governance, agentic AI, and the risk associated with emerging technologies. His expertise spans IT audit methodologies, IT general controls, and the responsible use of AI and intelligent agents in enterprise environments. And along with him, we have Brandy, who is an associate director in technology audit risk and enablement based out of Boston. She has 15 years of experience providing various technology audit and risk assessments related to regulatory risk, cybersecurity, data protection, and resilience. She's a resource within the technology enablement team driving AI solution to address innovation in internal audit. A warm welcome to both of you, and it's truly wonderful to have you both in this, to have a global perspective with us today. Before we begin, let me set the stage briefly. We are going to witness a decisive shift in India towards regulatory AI governance. The framework that has been set by the Government of India for AI risk classification from prohibited to high-risk use cases, mandatory AI system inventories, life cycle controls, and continuous insurance. At the same time, Comptroller and Auditor General of India's Artificial Intelligence Strategy framework establishes how public auditors must audit AI system, assess algorithmic bias, and re-evaluate AI maturity of government entities. Together, these mark a defining moment for auditors, regulators, and CFOs alike. Our audit lens must now expand to include AI model governance, explainability, and responsibility. So with that context, let's move straight into the presentation. Hans, over to you to share your insights on AI governance and risk management.
Perfect. Thank you, Sindhu. So we go to the next slide real quick. We'll be advancing some of the slides.
Yes.
Perfect.
So we've done.
All right. We already skipped the intros real quick, and Sindhu, thanks for doing that. So this presentation will exist out of two pieces, right? First, we'll talk a little bit more about the AI landscape, the risks, compliance around it. And then the second part, which is typically one of the parts which is the most exciting, where Brandy comes in, is where we're going to talk about some of the use cases, some of the use of AI within audit departments for controls. That's where we often get the most excitement, because that's the area where we can see a lot of benefits right now. So on this slide here, we'll start off, and there's a statement here on the left. It is a statement, I think, from a year ago right now from MIT, and it basically indicates, right, when that research was done, they basically discussed and said, like, hey, we all think AI is going to be huge, right? This is here to stay. This is going to be a technology that's going to be very disruptive. But at the time, like I said, I think this was a year ago, and things are moving very, very quickly. The amount of use cases used by organizations was actually pretty low. And I would say, even though in the past year, right, like there is a lot of movement, you see a lot of news online, you see a lot of updates, the use of AI is still not where I would have expected it. And what I mean with that is, like, we do a lot of assessments where we go to organizations and look at their governance program. And as part of that, we also look at use cases. And that, I would say, it's still pretty limited what we can look at. So there's still a ways to go, but like I said, this is not a technology that will go away. Um, on the right side here, we see some common challenges and concerns currently that are holding it back a little bit. The first one is the technology landscape. There is so much out there. So if you think about all the technologies you're hearing about online, if you look at LinkedIn, like every company starts using a new AI function. All of your vendors probably also have a new use of AI that they're implementing, that they're marketing to you or pushing out to you, right? And a lot of organizations are trying to figure out, how does this all fit into my ecosystem, right? My technology landscape. Because the past couple of years, there's also been a lot of focus on making sure to optimize that, making sure that everything works together. The second one, that goes back to the use cases, right? Like, a lot of organizations are trying to figure out where to start. Right? We see these very big use cases from large organizations. If you think about like a Meta or Facebook or other lot bigger ones, they obviously have access to a very big amount of resources, funding, and it's not comparable to a lot of other organizations, right? So trying to figure out where to start, where to find a use case that will have an impact, where we can show value to management, because there's always going to be an investment related. It's challenging. For us, the third one, as audit professionals, as risk professionals, right? The lack of trust, transparency, and security. This is a new technology. This is a new thing that we are looking at. We are not as comfortable with what is going on. We are not sure what is going on in the back end always. And we'll talk a little bit about it more, about how to responsibly develop some of it. But like the fact that organizations and mainly risk functions are not sure what is going on, it's definitely holding back the development. The regulatory and legal landscape, like Sindhu mentions, right? Like there's several regulations that came out in the past couple of years. There's some recent updates, also in India, that just came out, and organizations are trying to figure out, how is this going to impact me, right? So you might be developing new technologies, but if a new regulation comes out, could I be fined, right? Could it have an impact on me having to dial back some of my innovation? So trying to manage that not knowing what is going to happen is currently a little concerning. And the last one is balancing the balancing innovation and risk. Like, if we talk about a lot of the discussions around AI happen in the boardroom, happen amongst executives, and while your CIO and CEO might say like, hey, we're not hiring before we evaluate if we can use AI, right, potentially to take on a task. There's also the teams like your legal or your compliance team or your audit team or maybe even your audit committee saying, okay, well, sure, like we agree, like we want to innovate, we want to be faster, but we also want to do it in a smart way. So the pushback there, the push and pull, is definitely holding it back a little bit. All right, so now we'll go to the next slide. All right, so this is a slide we'll go through very, very quickly, because this is one of the basic slides that we always include. And I would say, going forward, we're probably going to take it out, because everyone's getting so familiar with the terms. But just to level set, right? AI, the technology that can make human-centric, human-like decisions. Machine learning, right? The technology that is learning from large data sets, something that's been out there for a long time. Gen AI, right? The technology that is able to make those novel-based outputs, large language models, like supporting that. And then your GPTs, basically, that is your interface that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis, right? So your ChatGPT or your Copilot or other ones. Go to the next one, Sydney. So think about use cases, right? Like I said, like if we were, as we are working with the different industries, we're not seeing a huge amount of use cases, but there's definitely certain industries where we are seeing more than others. So the first one I would say is like education on the for me bottom right. So this is one of these areas where when we started hearing about like AI and ChatGPT, right? Like you started hearing it on schools, and a lot of people were saying like, hey, like how is this going to impact like higher ed? And I was initially also one of those people. I was like trying to figure out like how is that going to impact it? Will it be limited? Will it be restricted? I've been working the past couple of years with several higher ed organizations here in the US, and they are actually very much promoting it, right? They are understanding that if their professors, if their students are not using this technology, they're probably behind, right? They're probably not as fast anymore with grading or with developing papers or doing research. So they're actually promoting it and making sure like, hey, we don't want to limit our people in our schools with AI, but we want to facilitate it. We want to facilitate the behavior. The next one on the left of that, healthcare. So obviously with the pandemic a couple of years back, and with healthcare now that's available in every country, right? And as in some others, there's a lot of benefits there. Like you can think about drug development, which can really speed up, but you can also think about healthcare to countries, like I said, like that don't have the healthcare we, for example, have in the US here, right? It's like you can potentially speed up and do a lot of analyzing with AI and provide people with better healthcare and really benefit them. Retail. Retail areas is an area where we've obviously they've been collecting a lot of data from us in the past couple of years. And this is an area where there's so much information available right now that they can actually start using it and really can market it towards us. And you skipped one, sorry about that. We skipped one, financial services. I would say that's our biggest industry here. And while they've been very familiar with models and with machine learning, I would say right now there's a lot of benefits there from making financial decisions, doing like AML type work where we used to really have a lot of like people working on that. Right now we're able to automate a lot of that. I would say because it's so highly regulated, it is one of the areas where we are getting a lot of questions right now just to come in and talk about it. We'll be able to advance to the next slide. So we'll have a quick question here. Curious to see what everyone is thinking about this, but which AI risk areas currently of greatest concern to your organization? I probably have to submit it to be able to see the responses, but
I'm seeing a lot of response coming for data privacy.
perfect. Yeah, I would say that is a pretty common response, right? Because a lot of these models are based on data. The more data you use, the stronger it typically gets. It's not always the case because if the data is not correct that you're feeding, it might impact it. It's definitely one of the biggest concerns, right? Like if I have a model within my organization, what is it going to collect, right? Like what data is it going to use?
Yeah. And a small portion for cybersecurity and vulnerabilities.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but that's another very good point, right? It's like when using some of these technologies, and especially if some of these technologies are interacting with the web or with other applications, like your attack surface really like expands. So
Yeah.
If you have people that really want to do something malicious to your environment, again, there's a bigger chance for them to get in, right? And I would say that the shift from governance to security is really happening right now, where a lot of organizations are asking us like, hey, how can we really like dial into the security for that?
Right. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Start with.
Yeah, so we'll start talking a little bit more about the governance around some of these areas, right? So if you flip to the next slide, the next slide is some of the things we've been hearing as part of the, in the boardroom, right? As part of like our executive teams. And the reason why we're sharing that is like the majority of times when we as Protiviti are asked to come in to either do an assessment, to do an audit, or just to speak as part of like an audit committee or another executive team meeting, it is because of questions getting from the executive team, right? And I would assume that a lot of people in this call are getting similar questions, right? Like I said, their CIO, their chief legal officer asking questions around like, hey, what does it mean for an organization, like from a legal or regulatory perspective, right? Like who's taking accountability for some of these systems, right? Who's owning it? How are we governing it? How are we monitoring that like this technology that we potentially implement is not going to make decisions that are potentially negatively impacting our organization? So a lot of these questions currently that we are seeing here, we're getting, and we as risk professionals obviously have to respond to that, have to provide either an assessment or and if you're comfortable with the topic, and if not, obviously make sure you have the right expertise to help you out with this. Go to the next slide. Perfect. So if you think about AI governance, we have 10 pillars that we typically focus on. Some of them, I would say a lot of them, if you think about IT governance, right, they're probably looking familiar. But some of them are also new, or others are like maybe a little bit tweaked. So I would say the first two, like if your policies and procedures or standards and your governing bodies, right, those are the first two that we typically ask about. And a year and a half ago when we started talking, or 2 years ago, probably when we started talking about a lot of these topics with organizations, the majority of organizations did not have a policy in place. They did not have a governing body in place, right? And that was the first thing. If we asked the question, like, do you have any of that? And they said no, like, well, we probably don't have to look into any of the other areas because you probably are not doing it as well. Right now, 1 and 2 are 2 areas where organizations are getting much better at. Like the only thing I would say from a governance body perspective, the question that we're getting a lot is who should be involved, right? Who should be part of like these committees? I would say often it is like your CIO, your CISO, right? But then also right now, often because of the data component, is like if you have someone who's responsible for data, that person will be involved. Legal or compliance, because like if you have data that is impacted by a regular by a compliance standard, that needs to be included. And we also even see audit there as well, because like if it's very new and we have to talk about controls, the audit team is involved as well. Your risk management framework, right? Like what are you aligning with, right? Are you adopting something like a NIST or an EU AI Act, which is typically the two that we work with the most? Or are you tailoring something specifically to your organization? Your AI use case inventory. This is one where it's kind of interesting to see that the majority of the organizations either don't have an inventory, or if they have an inventory, it's an Excel sheet with a few technologies listed there. But to be able to like know what is going on in your organization, what technologies are used, the risk related to it, you have to have a good understanding of what is out there. Number 5, your data protection, data governance. So an area that we've been looking at a lot the past 5-6 years, probably, right? So everyone did probably a data governance audit or data protection audit, data privacy. Now with different technologies out there, the different usage of data, right? Structured versus unstructured, you might want to look at it again, right? You might want to, again, figure out if you have to classify your data a little bit differently. You might want to figure out if you have to protect your data a little bit differently. Number 6, third-party risk management. Like I said, if a provider currently doesn't use AI, sometimes they don't even get selected by companies anymore, right? They're like, that's your competitive advantage, you lost it. Which means that most of your providers, your vendors are going to use it, but also means like, how are they using it with your data, right? Are they using it on your data? Are they storing your data? What technology are they using it? Are they pushing it out without asking? So really managing that is going to be a key one. Regulatory compliance. So figuring out what is happening from a regulatory perspective, right? Like it might be like a national level, might be a state level, for example, in the US, but also if you have customers in other parts of the world, how does this impact you, right? And monitoring that, because it is changing a lot. There's a lot of news out there, and sometimes it's really open for interpretation. Metrics and monitoring, making sure that when you're testing and developing some of these technologies, that you're really understanding what you're looking at. What is an effective change? What is an effective model? How are you testing it? And the testing definitely is different than your regular change, right? Where a regular change is like, yeah, it works. This is one where like, how is it going to evolve, right? How's it going to change based on the data that it's getting? Technical guardrails and controls, like I said, the development of this is important. Using tools to manage it will really be helpful. And then the last one is the people part, the training, the technology, or AI, I would say, it's only going to be adopted if people are willing to adopt it, right? And willing to use it, if they are able to use it, right? And if they're able to use it in an ethical way. Right, meaning so there's a lot of people components still going on, and that is as part of the discussion I'm having right now. I did a couple presentations where we talked a lot about the people component about AI, like how can we train our people, how can we also give them a feeling that they are not going to be obsolete, right? Because they are going to play a critical role going forward as well. Their tasks, their roles, their function might change a little bit, but there's going to be a very big component of people here as well. Go to the next slide.
If I could, Hans, may I
Yep.
just add what we're also seeing in a combination of number 4 for these AI use cases plus number 10, people understanding these use cases, is a lot of organizations and teams want to use AI, and they're checking a box that, oh, we have Copilot, we asked it some questions, and they don't truly understand all the power that AI has available to them. So it's almost like they're unaware of what use cases they can even develop. So again, that curiosity, that training, it's not something that you just suddenly know. It's really having that genuine interest and, like we said, curiosity, attending events like this. Attend as many of these types of events as you can. You know, there's many different providers, there's many different sources of knowledge out there. Start to hear what your peers are doing. You know, when you are able to go to in-person events, chit chat with your peers and see, well, how are you using this? And here's a problem that we're trying to solve. And just collect a really good library of different use cases that are potential and bring those to your committee. Chat with your team, see how you can actually make those work. Don't just satisfy for, oh, we used Copilot to help us brainstorm or do some research. There's really so much that needs to be unlocked. And it's just a little bit of a barrier of entry between what everyday folks understand about AI and how to build those use cases. So I just wanted to add that piece of encouragement in.
Yeah, Brandy, yeah, very good point. And I think that goes back to like some of the other statements I made saying like, hey, if we go to organizations, we don't see that many use cases, right? Yes, we do see them using Copilot, but we don't really typically like almost like consider that like a valid use case because it is such a basic functionality that they're using, right?
Right,
Versus maybe
right.
what Brandy will show a little bit later. We actually have some examples of actual use cases where there's a technology developed, which actually has like a pretty specific goal and function. So we'll talk through it a little bit more, but appreciate it, Brandy. That's very helpful. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. So if we think about developing AI, we think about like responsible development. There's a few key areas here that we typically look at, and it's based on some of the common frameworks that are listed below as well. First one is transparency and explainability, right? So if you are developing or if you are using AI, making sure that you are able to explain the methodology behind it, decisions that are made, the data that is used. I would say for us as risk professionals, right? If we work with a technology or if we work with a use case or application where it's almost like a black box, like all the alarm bells go off, right? Like we're like, oh boy, this is scary. We're not sure what this is going to do for the organization. So having a very good understanding of that while you're using it is going to be key there. Fairness and bias mitigation, right? So making sure that the model is trained and that it's making the right decisions. Obviously, there's a lot of power in this technology, but there's a lot of risk as well by the decision it potentially can make and the impact that it can have on you as an organization. Right? If you have a model in place and it's been functioning for a while, but you haven't maybe trained it correctly for some of these bias or fairness concerns, and it actually start making like the wrong decision, it can really have a very bad negative impact on your organization. So definitely one of the areas that you want to monitor and make sure you are aware of. Accountability. If things go well, everyone wants to take responsibility for the technology, right? If things don't go well, like the accountability is less. People don't want to take responsibility for a model. People don't want to monitor it if it doesn't go well. They only want to like run it to get the positive results. So definitely one of the areas where I would say making sure that you know who to reach out to, who's responsible for the results. Privacy and data concerns, right? So talked about that before. As you are developing it, making sure that you truly are considering like data privacy, data governance. If that means maybe you have to lock down the ability of AI to go through your organization, that might be the best thing to do, right? But like again, assessing that, not just relying on the data governance that you've set up 5-6 years ago, like while still probably helpful, this is an area that you definitely need to probably like reassess again. Robustness and security, like I said earlier, your attack surface is really getting much bigger, right? Just because of this technology that you can start asking questions to, right? If this technology has access to the World Wide Web, right? Like it might be able to be prompted by someone that you don't want to, right? For some of these technologies, we're not 100% sure what they are going to do if they are prompted the right way. And it's almost like, it's a weird way of saying the right way, but like if you have someone very smart and potentially malicious, they can get a lot of data out of your models in ways that you might have not expected. And lastly, like the human-centered design, right? Like I said, we truly believe that the people in the loop, the human in the loop is going to be key here, right? We truly believe that making sure that they have the right people involved as part of these key decisions, giving feedback on these models is going to be like the way to go and the way to keep these models currently responsible. So we'll go to the next slide. So here, so as we do a lot of these assessments, as we talk to a lot of organizations, again, talking a little bit more about what are the key risks, right, that we're seeing. So if you look at this slide, these are typically, as we do an audit or if we do like a risk assessment, these are the areas that we typically include in a lot of our reports because they pop up all the time, right? So governance and accountability. Right, clear ownership, policies, procedures. Like I said, it's getting better, but we're not there yet. Right, sometimes it's folded in existing policy. Sometimes the policy is very limited. I would say also, again, like these steering committees that they have, these governance committees, sometimes it's folding and folds in an existing committee. Sometimes it's more happening on a level that we're like, hey, we don't think the right people are involved. So definitely a lot of areas there to improve on. Compliance and legal, right? There are AI acts, right, out there. More is coming, but they're not always considered as you're developing it. So definitely making sure that you focus on that. The ethical and social, right? Like, we have these models out there, but it's not always considering some of the transparency and some of the fairness that are required as part of these models, right? So, and this is more like a deeper dive. It's like, hey, like you have this model in place. It seems to be working well. However, right, this could potentially start impacting some of the results and your customers or the public. Privacy and data protection. So like I said, like going back to the governance, right? So yes, we have some AI acts in place and regulations, but it also could start impacting your existing privacy regulations, right? Like your GDPR or your HIPAA, right? Those are areas where, again, we looked at a couple of years back. We're probably comfortable with it. Now we're introducing this new technology that is starting to use all this data, structured or unstructured. And especially if you let it loose in your organization, you don't know what data it's going to use and how it's going to impact some of your current regulations that you have to comply with. Cybersecurity, like I said, like a little bit earlier, if you are opening this up to more than just your organization, right, then it's a dilemma, right? Like if you want to get more power out of a tool or technology, right? If you want to get more power out of your vendors that are using it, right? You are probably going to open up to more than just your own segregated network. And that's where cybersecurity comes into play and the risk potential to your organization. And lastly, like monitoring these models, and it comes back to some of these other areas as well, but the more data we feed them, right, doesn't always mean that it gets better. We still, a lot of organizations still have pretty bad data as well, where again, bad data goes in, like bad results probably come out, right? Some organizations are potentially feeding it bad data as well on purpose, or people, right, just to impact the model. So go to the next one. I think it's another question that we have here. How would you characterize your organization's current approach to AI risk management?
As folks are answering this poll question, there was a question that came in that was really interesting, and it's what, from a financial reporting perspective, have you seen from a risk perspective? So what risks have you observed from a financial reporting perspective when it comes to AI?
Sorry, Brandy, is this a question for me or?
Just a question in general that was asked. It said, from a financial reporting perspective, are there any risks that you have observed?
I would say the only risks or questions we've had around it is where we had some organizations that used AI as part of some of their controls, like that potentially impacted it, and external auditors started asking questions around it, and they actually had to do some additional testing.
And I would add to it, from my perspective, I think we tackle AI, the use of AI for financial reporting, the same way you would model risk. So model risk has been around for a very long time, and the same aspects that you would want to evaluate if a model was being used for any financial reporting purposes, you'd want to follow suit similarly for any AI tools that are being used for your financial reporting.
Yeah, and going back real quick to, I'm looking at the polling results as well, and like if you think about like the results here, so the majority of people selected either informal or ad hoc or initial framework or policy development. So most organizations are earlier in that. Again, I would say that is what we are seeing currently as we are talking to organizations. So don't be concerned if you selected that. You're probably there right with a lot of your peers. But I do think as it continues to evolve, like this is an area where you probably want to spend a little bit more time on. We'll go to the next slide real quick, and I know I've been taking up a lot of time, and then I will hand it over to Brandy. So the next one here is talking about the Gen AI specific controls. I would say the majority of the controls here are not rocket science or completely new. They're often existing controls that are tweaked with an AI flavor, I would say. So not to take up too much time and time away from Brandy, because I know that's probably the more fun part that is coming. These are again, like these are some areas that I would say like that we typically recommend to organizations. So I'll hand it over to Brandy to go through some of the use cases. So take it away.
Great. Well, thank you. As we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there's really a lot of great ways to leverage AI accelerators in every aspect of your audit and assessment work that a lot of folks aren't really tapping into yet. So we wanted to just review today a few really great use cases that are easy and simple to use to help showcase the power of AI. So coming on down, we'll start with a question. What type of AI is your team using today? And as you're answering that question, I'll add some commentary that what we've seen is a lot of organizations are, again, interested, and they have Copilot, or they may have a private LLM, like a GBT, to help restrict some of the uses, make sure it's in a controlled space. But using AI outside of that, we haven't seen many folks take on large AI projects. What has been interesting this year throughout 2025 is we've seen a shift, as Hans mentioned, from interest to actually how do we get started? So we have been very busy going around speaking to different organizations, explaining through workshops, here's some simple, easy ways to get started. What are some of your problem statements or, your use cases, and how can we help you right fit which AI could be used to address those tasks? And then additionally, as what's noted here in item D, is AI and GRCs. So all of our GRCs are pushing down to us an AI solution. Sometimes that helps us with some writing, so we have consistent issue writing. Sometimes it helps us with, those predictive text. Sometimes it helps us with some linking. Those are all great small accelerators as well that don't take a large skill set to know how to use. So let's see what I don't know, how do I see what the answers are or what the polling results are? I don't think I see what the polling results. Oh, here we go. So it looks like the majority are using Copilot, which isn't surprising. As we mentioned, it's a great tool. It's a great tool to start with, right? It's a nice agent where you can chat, you can ask it questions, easy to use, user-friendly. Really great to see that a lot of folks are using that. And then some of the more advanced ones like AI and automation or agentic AI, those ones are still just starting to scratch the surface. So this isn't far off from what we're seeing in our industry experience either. All right, so moving on, what we wanted to show you was some interesting AI use cases. So this is just, as I mentioned, using AI in GRCs. All of our GRCs are pushing it down to us in the form of predictive text to help us generate some wording. I don't know of one single application that I use that doesn't already start filling in my words for me, from texting a friend to using my issue management system. Computers constantly want to tell me what words to use, and that's what we're mostly seeing when it comes to AI and GRCs. And then, of course, Copilot. Copilot is such a great tool because not only can we ask it questions in a very human language format that, of course, is all easy for us to ask, but there's also a lot of great things it can do for us. It can transcribe our meeting. So when we get approval from audience attendees to to record and transcribe a meeting, there's so much we can do with that transcription. And when we have Copilot as like a guest in that meeting, it's taking those notes. It's not only taking those notes for us, Copilot can also suggest, hey, maybe you want to ask this question, or you can quickly ask it, what are some top risks that you're seeing, or what are some controls that you're starting to see? How often do we have to do walkthroughs as auditors, right? You're sitting in weeks of walkthroughs with different control owners and different IT folks. And now you have to sit down and read through all your notes and then go manually, make your process flows or start writing your narrative to identify, well, what risks did we address and what controls did we address? And sometimes that process alone can take 1 or 2 weeks to do. With Copilot, we can very easily ask it, what are some key risks and what are some key controls that you've seen in this discussion? And within just moments, you have a response. So even that same day, you can go back to your control owner and confirm, this is what I heard, we didn't touch on this, or is this a correct understanding, and really vet those points a lot sooner. So the purpose of Copilot is never to replace the auditor's mindset, rather it accelerates some of those manual tasks that helps the auditor get into a seat of decision-making and doing more valuable work sooner. We've also seen about 25% of organizations starting to use their own private LLMs. So for example, at Protiviti, we have ProGPT, and that's a secure, controlled use of ChatGPT. It uses only the information that we feed it. It doesn't go out to, outside world. So it's a lot safer. So we've seen a much larger adoption this year of organizations building their own so that it's controlled. Even though it's in your own space, there are still considerations, right? So if I'm an auditor and I'm using it, and perhaps, especially when you work in internal audit, maybe I'm uploading things like employee data. Maybe I'm uploading things like an employee salary file that needs to be audited. Is that now being made available to anybody in the organization who needs to ask the private LLM a question? These are things to consider and make sure you have those right level of controls in place. And then, not surprisingly, a very small percentage, only 5%, is actually using AI plus automation. So again, there's a lot of power that AI can do, and we're just seeing organizations start to scratch the surface on those. So we really hope through today's conversation, as well as all the other conversations, it's definitely a hot topic at any conference, through webinars, through written material that the IA is publishing. Be curious, stay curious, keep learning, keep seeing how you can build upon these skills and bring them back into your organization so we can see this AI and automation number go up. Like that, I hope this time next year, when all of you come back to maybe an October meeting in 2026, that AI and automation is up to, that 40 to 50%. That's what we'd like to see growth in. All right, continuing on. Sorry, my screen is just a moment delayed. As I mentioned, pretty much any phase in the audit can be accelerated using AI. So right now in that planning phase, that's a lot of times where we see folks using a tool like Copilot to ask it a simple question. What are new risks that should be considered when I'm auditing asset management? Or what are some regulations that impact resiliency? Asking simple questions like that, it's just a great way to accelerate some of your brainstorming and research. Or how many of us have like an intern or a junior level staff member that we task, hey, go do some research, do some planning, and then they come back and they give you something, you're like, oh, where did you learn this? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I have to go back. So you're going back and forth and not really getting what you need. Whereas if you know a couple good prompting tips, you can really get all that done within a quick morning, just yourself in Copilot, again, just to help accelerate. And then based on that research and based on prior year's work, or based on whatever your audit plan is, you can ask Copilot, can you prepare a document request list based on this list of controls? Based on how we did this last year and knowing that we want to add this, can you please update my work program to include these additional risks and controls? Or what are the additional risks and controls that should be updated? Please put it in a table format so that I have, it's very easy to copy and paste right into your, whatever your structure is. but we can also accelerate our field work. So not only the process and control narrative, documenting processes and control narratives, as I mentioned, when you're doing walkthroughs, if you take those transcriptions, you can interact with that transcription in a way that really wasn't possible before. So you're able to quickly identify the risks, the controls, missing points, get it back to the control owner to vet a lot sooner. But we've even taken that a few steps further and have automated that to, hey, this is the transcript. You already know the risk and controls. Document a narrative for me, document a process flow for me. And one thing that's really cool that our team has recently done is we've said, here's our recording, the video and transcript. From this, go into my video, take screenshots of what was shown on the screen when we were talking about certain things during the transcript to even document some of that completeness and accuracy check, to document some walkthroughs in a more robust way. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do there. And again, with a simple tool like Copilot that half of us have said we're already using. AI can also help with our audit report writing, making our audit reports more consistent, helping accelerate that draft to your review table faster. Again, it doesn't replace the auditor. So we would never encourage just have AI write your audit report and send it off to go. You would still want to review it just as you would if a junior associate prepared that and prepped that for you. But man, I tell you, it really allows for like this level of consistency, especially those larger organizations where you're doing multiple audits a year by multiple folks. And everyone has their own little writing style, and even folks have difference in what they want to add and how they want to add it. Using AI as the first draft really helps lead consistency. And when we have a more consistent view across audits, we have more insightful audits. We have better reporting on where we're strong in the organization and where our risks truly lie. And also within the report writing, take advantage of what your GRC is spoon feeding you your words, saying, hey, did you want to type this, and starts pre-filling? Because with issue writing, having that consistent language is really going to help deduplicate the amount of issues that you have in your issue inventory. And again, it helps better map out where do you truly have your issues. So if I had an issue and I didn't know Hans was auditing a similar area and he logged an issue, AI can give us even a little warning like, hey, this was already logged as an issue just a month ago by Hans in this audit. Like, do you mean to address a new issue, or is it just a word choice? So it helps really clean up our issue management system a lot. And then, of course, when we're updating policies and procedures, performing risk assessments, even communicating with different stakeholders, AI can help us accelerate all of that. So there's a lot still to be unlocked. Again, we really hope a takeaway from all of you today is to creatively think, what from this table here is my team not yet doing, and how can we get doing that with the tools we have today? You don't always need the fanciest car in the garage to get you down the street, right? Using Copilot, you can get a lot of this done, and we really hope you take time to explore what use cases you want to do from here and how you can do those. So continuing to advance, what I'd really like to do is show you a couple examples. We can keep coming through this. This is just some more examples of what we have that I'll show you in the video. So go ahead, one more. This is a walkthrough preparation. So I can tell Copilot, hey, I'm going to have a meeting with this person. This was the narrative, or these were the notes from the last time I met with them. You know, help me make an agenda, help me come up with a script. You're going to have that meeting, you're going to have that script. And during the meeting, I can even ping along to Copilot asking, hey, what are some follow-up questions I should ask? Reconcile what we talked about against my agenda to help me understand if I missed anything. After the meeting, help me summarize what are the key takeaways. Help me summarize key decisions. Help me highlight key risks. And again, all of this is just accelerating you to a point where you're vetting and getting back to documentation much sooner. So continuing to come along to the next slide. This is an example of how we have built an LLM to help us with audit report writing. So if you want to go ahead and click on the screen, it'll automatically start. And this is how simple and user-friendly AI can be. So what we've done is built a very user-friendly interface that already operates on our Power Apps platform that we have within our organization. And there's some attestation that we hit agree to, and it just says, you know, review the work. Don't just trust AI, review the work. So we go ahead and hit AI. We do have to attach a few project metrics here. What's the project number? Who's leading the project? But what we're really going to do here is upload 3 simple documents: our scoping memo, our work program, and our observation log. This is as easy as just a drag-drop function. So it's going to drag and drop. We're going to drag and drop these files. As you can see, it's a very simple, easy function. Upload, drag the file, click OK. It seems slow right now because I'm talking over it, but this is just very, user-friendly, nothing complex, nothing scary. We do have a few refinement options if there's certain language that we want to be able to refine, or risk statements or recommendations. So we can toggle between those options, and then we click Generate. Then we'll get a notification within a few minutes that the report is in an editable phase that's ready for us to update. It exports it into like a Microsoft Word. All of this is editable, but it's based on a structure that we've used time and time again that helps lead that consistency. It has the language choices that we like already. So again, helps lead that consistency. This again is going to lead to more impactful audits because the folks are actually spending more time getting down to those root causes, more time talking with control owners to understand the true problems, the true risks, and what are better recommendations, rather than spending all of our time typing in Microsoft Word. So that's just a really quick, easy way. So within just the moments that I was talking, we developed an audit report based on those 3 simple inputs. And advancing down to the next slide, Sindhu, we have enough. One more, I'm sorry. This is another one for SOC report testing. I'm not going to show it, but I'll just quickly speak to it. SOC report testing, as we know, if anyone has had to test that, is a big pain in the butt because it's a very large file. You're never really sure what needs to be evaluated and when, and how to document your review. We consistently see the PCAOB, other oversight and regulatory boards telling management, you did not do a good enough job documenting evidence that you did a SOC report review. No longer is it acceptable to just log a ticket and say, yep, I reviewed it, or just to sign off on the cover page of a SOC report and say, I reviewed it. So what we went ahead and did is our team developed the SOC report review template. So you upload this tool, or you upload your SOC report into our tool, and it outputs this really neat Excel table. And what it's doing is it's extracting key information that you would want to review as part of your SOC report review and allowing spaces for you to go in and add your review comments. This not only accelerates you having to read through pages and pages of, most times the PDF that you get your SOC report. This is in a really nice to read format. It's in Excel. It allows spaces for you to document your positive affirmation that you reviewed a certain piece of information. It allows external auditors as well as regulators to very clearly evidence that you did this, you performed this review, and what your thoughts on this review were. And it also takes your PDF and turns it into a searchable document by applying a text filter on top of it. So then it's really nice if you have to go back in and copy new information. So just, again, accelerating the way we do it. It's not replacing the human. It's just making my job a lot easier. And in this last minute, I do just want to advance one more slide down to slide 23. And this is Data Extractor. This is the one I'm most excited about. So go ahead and click it one more time. Data Extractor takes a large amount of documents and searches for those key pieces of information. So think about any time you've had to take a sample of changes, for example, and you needed to test 25 change tickets. And in those 25 change tickets, each of those tickets, you need to get change number, the name of the change requester, the date it was requested, the name of the person who approved it, the date that that ticket was approved. That's 5 pieces of information across 25 documents. And sometimes the information is documented in different ways or different formats. So you're fiddle-faddling for a whole week, sometimes a week and a half, going through all these tickets, trying to get the information. Again, the client sent them to you in PDF format, so you can't just copy. Now you need to manually type it. You are fat fingering it, so you're messing up your numbers, or you forgot to type something. You spent a week spending time just preparing a table. This is a tool we built where we say, rather than 25 tickets, I'm going to upload all 250 tickets. And I'm going to ask AI, of these 250 tickets, go in and get these key pieces of information. And not only does it pull these fields into a table for me, it goes back to these PDFs, these Word documents, these images, and marks up where they got that. So this was an example with invoices. They're marking up where they grabbed these values. So not only is it preparing the table, it's going back and doing that tick marking that we would all have to do anyways. So there are just so many cool use cases and so much power that AI has to offer that we have yet to take advantage of. So I hope by highlighting just a few of these, it encourages and excites you to start exploring what more can be done. And again, this is all just with a simple in-house built LLM. I know we're at time. We could talk for days on this stuff. So if there are more questions, we highly encourage, write to us. We're happy to keep this conversation going. Chat with your peers that you're seeing in the group chat here. See what they're doing. Stay in touch. Add everybody on LinkedIn. Let's keep sharing these thoughts and build a more AI-enabled future together. So thank you, everybody. Hans, Sindhu, I don't know if you have any closing remarks. Oh, we have one more polling question. I'm sorry. Thank you.
We'll do the polling question like as we are wrapping it up. And sorry, we had to rush through some of the use cases a little bit, but to Brandy's point, right? Like, please reach out to Sindhu if you have any follow-ups. She can definitely connect you all with us or answer any questions, or LinkedIn. Or I think I already received a few requests online. We often post on LinkedIn as well about some of the things we're working on, right? Because we're excited about this. Like Brandy gets very excited if we're talking about all the new things we've been developing, right? Because all our clients love to see it, so we love to share it, right? So we continue to do that as well. So appreciate everyone joining. And Sindhu, I will leave it to you to close it out.
Yeah, sure. I think we're still getting responses. The majority is lack of internal expertise on training.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? It's a new topic. People are not as comfortable with it yet. So often what we do is, even when we do some of these assessments or when we look into auditing AI, we team up with the local team, right? So if we have a client, we involve one of their seniors or managers as part of the audit, and so they can learn, because this first time around is typically like more like the design assessment, because there's not that much in place. And the second time around, they probably are more comfortable with the topic and some of the questions they need to ask, and they can either run it themselves with less involvement from us. And that's always our goal, right? To train up our clients and the teams we're working with to take it on themselves as well.
Sure. Agreed. Okay. Thank you once again, Hans and Brandy, for sharing your perspectives, and to all our participants for joining us today. I think there's one takeaway from this session. It's that AI governance isn't just a technology matter, it's a governance imperative. The internal audit, finance function have a pivotal role in ensuring AI systems are transparent, auditable, and aligned to the regulatory expectations. Thank you all for your time. If there are any questions that we can quickly take up. Are you able to see any questions?
I saw one question, and it was about, in the recent news, you're hearing how misuse of AI leads to a lot of fines. And that's absolutely true. And that's why we keep saying you cannot just use AI blindly. Some folks want to move too fast, give it to AI and get it out the door.
Yeah.
But just as Hans mentioned, quality in equals quality out. You still are responsible as the auditor to perform thorough review of what is coming out of AI And you as the auditor is responsible for understanding what type of transformation is happening, just as if you were using a model. So yes, shame on the folks who aren't doing that level of vetting. They deserve those fines, and you can avoid those fines by making sure you have those right controls in place. Don't be fast and sloppy. Take the time, understand it. One example, I know we're reaching time here. One example I like to say is you don't just get on a bike one day and ride it, right? You have to practice. So don't go using AI right before financial reporting is due for year end. That is not the time to practice with AI. Start practicing with AI on smaller projects when you have time. Build your confidence there. Do your checks and balances there. Then use it for the big audit report writing. Then use it for financial reporting. Get comfortable with it first. Don't try to move too fast without having that proper structure.
Yeah, now I would say like we definitely are doing that ourselves as well, right? Like even with some of these accelerators that Brandy just shared, like we're using those internally, right? If you think about the SOC accelerator, it's a huge benefit. However, it is one of the accelerators or use cases that we are tweaking still, right? Every time we run it,
Right.
we still do a manual check and we just still make sure that everything is correct because we cannot afford a mistake, right? And if we find an area where we can make improvements, we'll share it again with our development team and improve it. So we're going through those processes ourselves as well. Again, to make it better. I'm sorry, Sindhu, I cut you off.
No. That's absolutely fine, Hans. I totally understand and I agree with both of you. And with the AI throwing out the output so fast, people are so easily using it without even doing the checks and balances, which is where all the problem starts coming in, right? So not all AI models is up to date with the information that they have in their data bank. So I think it's very important that we validate the output generated by the AI LLMs and use it consciously and cautiously so that we can avoid these mishaps. I think there are a lot of questions, but looking at the time, we don't have enough time to answer all the questions. What we can do is we will collate those questions, respond to your emails. But thank you all for your time, and I hope this you all found this webinar very insightful and actionable. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having us.